I still remember the exact sound the letter made when I pulled it out of my mailbox. That sharp rip of paper, the stiff envelope that felt more official than friendly. At first, I thought it was junk mail, maybe one of those real estate flyers offering to buy my house fast for cash. But when I tore it open, my stomach dropped. It was a violation notice. Apparently, my backyard fence was 2 inches above approved height according to HOA regulations. 2 inches. Not 2 feet, not some neon-painted monstrosity, just 2 inches. And for that, they slapped me with a $75 fine and a warning that further non-compliance could result in escalated enforcement. Now, if you don't live in a neighborhood with an HOA, you probably think I'm exaggerating. But those who do live under one know what I mean. HOAs don't ask, they don't suggest, they dictate. And that piece of paper in my hand felt less like a friendly reminder and more like a shot across the bow. But before I tell you how a simple fence spiraled into something so much bigger, you need to understand a little about me. My name's Rachel Carter. I'm a single mom in my late 30s, raising my 2 kids, Ethan, who's 12 and just starting middle school, and Lily, who's 8, all sass and sunshine. We live in a tidy little suburban neighborhood in Texas, where houses look like copy-paste versions of each other, lawns are supposed to be perfectly green, and God forbid your trash can stays out a day too long. We moved here 5 years ago, after my divorce. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a safe place for the kids, a community where they could ride their bikes without me worrying too much. I saved for years to afford this place, juggling 2 jobs at one point just to scrape together the down payment. So when I finally got those keys in my hand, I promised myself I wasn't going to let anything ruin it. But the truth is, this neighborhood wasn't as picture-perfect as the brochure made it seem. Behind the smiles and good morning waves, there was a constant undercurrent of judgment. Who had weeds? Who let their Christmas lights stay up too long? And worst of all, who was going to get on the wrong side of the HOA board? The president of that board was a man named Gary Mitchell, retired, mid-60s, the kind of guy who still ironed his polo shirts and polished his mailbox weekly. He lived 3 streets over, but his shadow stretched across the whole neighborhood. Gary loved rules. He quoted bylaws the way pastors quote scripture. And everyone knew, if Gary had his eye on you, trouble was coming. And apparently, Gary had his eye on me. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the violation notice, just staring at it. Ethan wandered in, grabbed a juice box from the fridge, and asked what was wrong. I waved it off, but Lily peeked over my shoulder, her little brow furrowed. "Are we in trouble, Mommy?" That broke my heart. I forced a smile, told her no, it was just a silly piece of paper. But deep down, I felt it, the sting of being targeted. Because here's the thing. My fence wasn't new. It had been up since we moved in. The developer built it. If it was 2 inches too tall, it had been that way for 5 years. Why now? Why me? I shoved the letter in a drawer and told myself to let it go. Pay the fine, keep the peace. But little did I know, that fence was about to drag me into the ugliest fight of my life. And it all started with one simple thought that kept me awake that night. If they can fine me over 2 inches, what else can they do? The next morning, I walked the kids to the bus stop like usual. The Texas sun was already brutal, even at 8 a.m., but the real heat came from the stares of my neighbors. 2 moms I usually chatted with, Denise and Carla, kept their voices low, glancing at me like I'd suddenly grown a second head. I caught snippets. Fence, HOA. Rules are rules. By the time the bus pulled away, my blood was boiling. Word had already spread. In less than 24 hours, my 2-inch violation wasn't just between me and the HOA. It was gossip fodder for the whole street. When I got back home, I checked the HOA Facebook group. Big mistake. There it was. Gary himself had posted a picture of my fence. He blurred the address, but anyone who lived nearby could tell exactly which house it was. The caption? Friendly reminder to follow community guidelines. Uniformity keeps our neighborhood beautiful. Uniformity. Like we were clones. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Instead, I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I settled for nothing, because deep down, I knew if I took the bait, I'd lose. But Gary wasn't done. That same afternoon, I found a second letter in my mailbox. This one wasn't about the fence. It was about my trash can. Apparently, it had been visible from the street for more than 12 hours past collection day, which was a lie. I'd rolled it back the same night. But of course, how do you prove that? When Ethan came home from school, he noticed me pacing the kitchen. "Mom, you okay?" he asked. I snapped, louder than I meant to. "No, Ethan, I'm not okay. These people are trying to make me miserable." His eyes widened, and I immediately softened. I pulled him close, kissed his head, and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. It's not your fault. It's just some people don't know how to mind their own business." But even as I said it, I realized this wasn't about some people. It was about one man, Gary. And maybe I could have endured it. Maybe I could have kept my head down and prayed he'd move on. But then came the night that changed everything. It was past midnight, and I couldn't sleep. I got up to grab some water, and as I passed the front window, movement caught my eye. Someone was standing in front of my house. At first, I thought maybe it was a teenager sneaking home late, but then I saw the reflective vest, the clipboard, the flashlight scanning up and down my yard. Gary. At 12:17 a.m., Gary Mitchell was outside my house inspecting my property like some kind of yard police. And as I stood there frozen behind the curtain, something inside me snapped. This wasn't about a fence, or trash cans, or uniformity. This was about control. And for the first time in my life, I thought, maybe it's time someone fought back. The very next morning, I started researching. I dug through the HOA bylaws, scrolled through old meeting minutes, even Googled how to overthrow your HOA board, like some kind of suburban revolutionary, and that's when I found it. Every year, board members had to run for re-election. And guess what? Elections were only 2 months away. I laughed out loud, a bitter, half-crazy laugh. What if I ran? What if I put my name on that ballot? Not because I wanted power, but because I wanted to shove it right back in Gary's face. The idea was ridiculous. I was just a single mom with zero political experience. But the more I thought about it, the more it burned in my chest. That night, I told Ethan and Lily over dinner. Ethan nearly choked on his mac and cheese. "You? On the HOA board?" Lily giggled. "Does that mean we can make a rule about ice cream every day?" I smiled, but inside, I was serious. Dead serious. Because here's the truth. Gary wasn't just picking on me. He'd fined Denise for having a basketball hoop. Carla got cited because her holiday lights stayed up until January 3rd. Everyone hated him, but everyone was too afraid to stand up. Maybe I could be the one. I filed my candidacy form the very next morning, and when Gary saw my name on the list, I swear I could feel the neighborhood tremble. What I didn't know yet, what I couldn't have known, is just how ugly things were about to get. Because when you go to war with a man like Gary, he doesn't just play dirty. He rewrites the rulebook. And by running for the board, I hadn't just made a choice. I'd lit a fuse.
I'll admit it, at first my campaign was fueled by pure spite. I didn't picture myself in power, making neighborhood decisions. I pictured Gary's face when he realized he wasn't untouchable anymore. But once my name hit that candidate list, things got complicated. Neighbors started whispering, but this time it wasn't pity. It was curiosity. Carla stopped me at the bus stop and muttered, "About time someone ran against him." Denise slipped me a thumbs up when Gary wasn't looking. Even Mr. Patel, the quietest man on the street, handed me a nod of encouragement as he watered his lawn. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone. But Gary, he didn't take it lightly. The very next week, I got hit with another violation, this time for improper mulch placement. Apparently, the color of my mulch didn't match the approved shade. I laughed when I read it. It was so absurd I couldn't even be mad. But then I checked the HOA Facebook group, and my laugh died. Gary had posted another picture. My yard, my mulch, captioned, "Attention homeowners, please adhere to landscaping standards. Non-compliance sets a bad precedent." The comments section lit up. Some defended me, others sided with Gary. It was war, and everyone was watching. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with campaign flyers I'd printed at Office Depot. Lily helped me color the margins with crayons, while Ethan rolled his eyes. "Mom, no one cares about mulch," he said. Exactly. That's why this matters. Because here's what Gary didn't realize. Every time he came after me, every time he nitpicked, he wasn't just hurting me. He was proving my point. And I was going to make sure the whole neighborhood saw it. Election season brought with it the dreaded HOA Town Hall, an event where residents aired grievances, but everyone knew Gary controlled the mic. But this time, though, it was different. Because word had gotten around, not just about my fence, about Denise's basketball hoop, Carla's lights, Mr. Patel's bird bath that was not HOA approved. Gary had left fingerprints on everyone's life. The night of the town hall, I showed up early wearing the nicest blazer I owned. My hands were sweating, my heart pounding, but when I walked into that stuffy little clubhouse, I saw something that gave me strength. Phones. Everywhere. People were live streaming the meeting, recording it, posting it straight to Facebook. For the first time, Gary's power wasn't happening behind closed doors. He started the meeting the same way he always did, calm, smug, with that smile that never reached his eyes. He rattled off landscaping fines, paint violations, mailbox standards, and then he turned to me. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice smooth but sharp, "I see you're running for a board seat. Perhaps you'd like to explain why you believe rules should not apply equally to all residents." Gasps, eyes on me, cameras angled closer. I stood, my knees were shaking, but my voice came out steady. "I don't believe rules shouldn't apply. I believe rules should serve people, not punish them." A murmur swept the room. Gary smirked. "So, you believe you're above the law?" I took a breath. This was the moment. "No," I said firmly. "I believe you think you are." The room erupted. Laughter, applause, even a few cheers. Gary's smile cracked for the first time. And as the live stream chat flooded with comments, hearts, clapping emojis, messages like, "Finally someone said it," I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a reckoning. The election came down to a single week later. By then, my campaign wasn't about me anymore. It was about every resident who'd been shamed, fined, or bullied into silence. I wasn't just running out of spite, I was running with purpose. When the results were read aloud, my breath caught. Rachel Carter, 63 votes. Gary Mitchell, 41 votes. I won. For the first time in 10 years, Gary wasn't president. The look on his face was priceless, but more importantly, The look on my neighbors' faces, relief, joy, even tears, reminded me why I did it. My first act on the board, I rewrote the bylaw that let board members weaponize vague rules. Fines had to come with proof. Appeals were easier. And this one was my favorite: no posting shaming photos of neighbors online. People called it Rachel's Rules. And though Gary tried to stir trouble from the sidelines, it didn't matter. The power had shifted. But the moment I'll never forget, 3 months later, at another town hall, Gary stood up during open comments. His voice shook, his pride cracked. "You've ruined this community," he spat. I looked him dead in the eye, calm and steady. "No," I said. "I gave it to the people who live here." The room erupted again. Cameras flashed, and this time even Ethan stood up, clapping with everyone else. Lily tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, you won." And I realized she wasn't talking about the election. She meant the war, the fear, the endless battle of rules and fines. For the first time since I moved here, I felt free. Epilogue. The fence still stands. It's funny. That fence, the one that started it all, still stands in my backyard, 2 inches taller than allowed. But now when I look at it, I don't see a violation. I see a reminder that sometimes the smallest battles, the pettiest fights, can spark the biggest change. And that even in the most uniform neighborhoods, one voice can break the silence.